Discover how a single dad CEO transformed a cold blind date into an inspiring journey of healing. Jake Turner sat in his office, the air thick with tension, his heart racing. The weight of his failing tech startup crashed down on him like an avalanche. He glanced down at the piles of paperwork on his desk, dread pooling in his stomach. As a single dad, he bore the burden of providing for Sophie, his 8-year-old daughter, in their cramped apartment, an explosion of her art supplies and boundless laughter that paradoxically reminded him of both joy and desperation. Every sleepless night spent strategizing over budgets, each day filled with school pickups and endless meetings, amalgamated into a pressure cooker environment that felt ready to burst. What kind of future could he promise his daughter if he couldn't even keep his business afloat? The chaos of the day echoed in his mind. Would there be enough money to cover groceries this week? Sophie's laughter faded as shadows of self-doubt consumed him. Caught in a whirlpool of his personal and professional failings, even the thought of a blind date with Emily, a polished attorney and the epitome of success, felt like a cruel joke. He wasn't the man he used to be, and now, a pit in his stomach warned him that he was hoping for something that felt far out of reach. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He walked into the restaurant, feeling the constriction of his too-tight shirt. His internal voice roared with insecurity. What did he even have to offer? Would she see through him, this struggling CEO who barely had enough energy to play catch with Sophie after a long day? The clinking of cutlery surrounded him, a symphony of normalcy that felt foreign. As he caught Emily's gaze, her polite smile faded as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by an expression of distant disinterest that sent a fresh wave of panic crashing through him. Conversations flowed from her like water, but he struggled to find his footing. Each awkward silence felt like a gaping hole in his spirit, deepening his conviction that perhaps he wasn't cut out for the world of dating, let alone fatherhood. The evening felt longer than time itself. Questions swirled like a tempest in his head. Could he ever find someone who'd understand this chaotic life he led? Who would embrace the concept of being a father? Just when he thought it couldn't get worse, Emily pulled her phone out, scrolling absent-mindedly. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Here he was, pouring out his heart, while she was preoccupied, validating his fears of inadequacy. The weight of his existence pressed down, taunting him with every passing moment. He recoiled from the vulnerability he had shown, wondering if he would ever find solace amidst the noise of disappointment echoing in his mind. But then, just days later, an unexpected email arrived from Emily. She needed his help. His heart skipped. The project she was spearheading aimed to use technology to aid low-income families, giving him a renewed sense of purpose and intrigue. Yet as anticipation mingled with anxiety, he couldn't shake the feeling that stepping into this new challenge might only deepen his internal conflict. The deeper they delved into their work together, grappling with their past struggles and the judgments surrounding them, the harder it became to separate their professional ambition from their personal trials. Jake realized that navigating this venture with Emily would require confronting fears far greater than business setbacks, their very identities, fraught with classism and unfulfilled dreams. As they unearthed each other's vulnerabilities, Jake wrestled with the gnawing question: would love be strong enough to stitch together the fragments of their fractured lives? With a surge of determination, he felt the last vestiges of doubt adjoining his anguish, tight like a grip around his throat, leaving him questioning everything as uncertainty loomed. Would he step forward into the unknown, or retreat back into the shadows where his fears lay waiting? Jake woke early the next morning, the horizon outside his window painted in delicate strokes of pink and gold. Neither sleepy nor hopeful, he slapped the alarm off with a determination that came with both dread and opportunity. Today would be different. It had to be. As he prepared coffee that brewed more pessimism than caffeine, the email from Emily replayed in his mind. He had the skills his startup, though shaky, had a foundation built on innovation. Yet beneath his competence lay the lingering ache of self-doubt. His phone buzzed, breaking the morning silence. An alert flashed across the screen. Their initial meeting for the project was set for later that afternoon. He took a deep breath, the anxiety creeping back in. What if he stumbled over his words? What if the project demanded more than he was able to give? He had never conceived of branding himself as a savior for families struggling in poverty. Would he be a fraud in such a lofty endeavor? Determined to silence the inner critic, he poured the steaming coffee into a travel mug, preparing for a day of reckoning. As he pulled on a jacket, he glimpsed Sophie immersed in her art, a swirling explosion of color on the kitchen table. For a fleeting moment, her innocent creation made Jake's heart swell, juxtaposing the chaos haunting him. Embracing fatherhood had been his quiet fortress, a constant that reminded him of what it meant to love unconditionally despite the storms. His daughter's laughter was a reminder of the stakes. She was a reason to rise out of the ashes, to seek purpose far beyond personal gain. Driving to the meeting, he juxtaposed reasons for success against the fear of failure. This project could not only anchor his professional existence, but might also teach him the transformative power of empathy. He envisioned the families they would help, mothers who fought daily to survive, children who deserved better opportunities. Here was his chance to effect change, to shift from a victim to a catalyst. However, self-doubt returned. What if he faltered the moment the stakes were real? Emily was already at the cafe, her poised demeanor radiating confidence. She greeted him with a warm smile that eased some of his tension. As they settled at a table, the conversation naturally spiraled into objectives and dreams, each idea sparking thoughts of possibility. The initial anxiety melted. He was a professional in this realm. He laid out his ideas, meticulously weaving logic and compassion into a narrative that he hoped would resonate with Emily. Jake felt something shift within him. For the first time, he wasn't just telling a story of personal defeat, he was painting a hopeful future, one tinged with human connection. Emily leaned forward, nodding, a genuine interest illuminating her eyes. Their mutual purpose felt palpable, urging them both deeper into the conversation. By the time they wrapped up, Jake realized he had found something valuable, a valuable ally and a promising project. The shadows of self-doubt began to lift, replaced by a sense of ownership over his role in forging a path toward change. Yet, as he walked away from the cafe, exhilarated but apprehensive, he felt a whisper of fear return. Would the success of this project redefine who he was, not just as a potential partner to Emily but as Sophie's father? Could he sustain this newfound ambition without losing sight of his priorities? The challenge of harmonizing his professional life and fatherhood pressed heavily upon him. With those questions lingering, he knew he stood at a crossroads. Emerging from his comfort zone meant confronting the fears that had long held him captive. What began as an attempt to salvage a career had morphed into a quest for self-discovery and authenticity. As dusk settled, Jake felt a flicker of courage. The time had come to face the truth about himself. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he retreat into the shadows once more? The morning after the meeting with Emily, the weight of anticipation clung to Jake like a heavy coat. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to a pivotal moment, and he leaned into the discomfort. Today, he would dig deeper into the project and confront the barriers that had held him back for so long. With Sophie's laughter echoing in his mind, he sensed a newfound urgency to find the balance between ambition and his role as a father. He stared at his scattered notes, the ink still bold and full of promise. What began as a jumbled collection of ideas now read like a manifesto. But the throbbing question remained, would he be able to meet his own expectations? After a quick breakfast with Sophie, he dropped her off at school, her wide-eyed enthusiasm acting as a reminder of every dream he had for her future. At the office, the atmosphere buzzed with a frenetic energy, and Jake found himself swept up in it. His team huddled around a whiteboard, markers in hand, brainstorming ways to better incorporate empathy into their project. Every suggestion brought forth a mix of excitement and obsession, yet beneath it all lay an unsettling dichotomy. They were enthusiastic but unaware of the real stakes associated with their work. What did it mean to truly connect with the families they aimed to help? As he clashed with Jake, one of his team members, the tension grew palpable. "We're talking about branding here, not therapy," Jake snapped, his voice sharper than intended. The repercussions of his words hung heavy in the still air. He could see confusion flicker across his colleague's face, and in that moment, Jake wrestled with his emotions. Assertiveness or authenticity? "Maybe you're right," he admitted, feeling the edges of vulnerability soften his authoritative tone. "But let us not forget we're expecting to shift lives, not just create a marketing campaign." The exchange cracked the tension and sparked a more profound discussion, rallying the team around a shared vision. As they dug deeper into the emotional narratives they could share, Jake realized the stew of ideas simmering within him. His years of juggling struggles as both a father and a professional had equipped him with extraordinary insights into resilience. He had been an outsider in both worlds, now it was time to embrace it. Hours slipped by, and as he wrapped up the meeting, Jake felt light and resolute. He could feel the project crystallizing around a unified purpose, driven by genuine compassion rather than abstract goals. Each member had contributed, and their collective energy was palpable. Later that evening, as he settled at home, Jake picked up Sophie's latest art project, a vibrant collage that depicted family life through her innocent eyes. He could almost hear the laughter and love woven into the colors, blurring the lines between his aspirations and responsibilities. In that moment, he forged a connection within himself, a merging of professional ambition with the nurturing spirit of fatherhood. But as the hour grew late, Jake's mind wandered back to the confrontation with his colleague that afternoon. Had he truly conveyed the importance of empathy, or had he simply masked his own fears behind passionate defense? The haunting uncertainty crept back in, nagging at the edges of his newfound courage. Jake leaned back on the couch, conflicted. He had made strides but knew deep down that this was only the beginning. With the project looming larger each day, the stakes only escalated, and the chance to truly redefine himself as a father and a professional loomed on the horizon. The next step was essential, and it called for a leap of faith, a willingness to expose his vulnerabilities while standing firm on the values he held dear. Could he remain true to himself as he ventured further into uncharted territory? The answers and challenges awaited him, hidden beyond the horizon. What lay next could either fortify his resolve or challenge the very fabric of his identity. The next morning, sunlight spilled into Jake's bedroom, illuminating the scattered remnants of the previous day's revelations. He awoke with an undulating sense of purpose coursing through him, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had plagued him unyieldingly. Yet, as the crisp air filled his lungs, a realization dawned. Moving forward meant he could not shy away from the emotional terrain that awaited him. He set his sights on an internal canvas that was splattered with both fear and determination. After dropping Sophie at school, he returned to the office, fully cognizant of the narrative he needed to weave into their project. This was not merely about branding, it was about storytelling rooted in empathy, driven by human connection. As he entered the conference room, a wave of anticipation swept through his team, an echo of his own fervor. "Let us kick things off," he announced, adopting a tone that commanded attention. "Today, I want each of us to share a personal story that highlights the struggles we've faced in our own lives. Let us unearth the intricacies of our experiences and explore how they can touch the hearts of those we aim to serve." Surprised looks exchanged among his colleagues. The initiative felt raw, but Jake sensed their exhilaration threaded with apprehension. He seated himself, allowing the silence to settle before he spoke again. "I'll go first." Jake took a deep breath, experiencing a flickering panic but pressing onward. He shared a story about a day when he had felt utterly powerless as a single father, when he had watched Sophie struggle to fit in at school, feeling displaced and silent. He recounted the ache that surged in his chest as he realized he wanted nothing more than to shield her from the world's harshness. It didn't come from a place of pity but rather a profound recognition of the injustices they faced together. The room was quiet as he concluded. Jake's vulnerability hung in the air like sunlight creeping through the curtains. Slowly, stories began to unravel from his colleagues. Some spoke of fraught family dynamics, while others shared the burdens of balancing work and home. Each narrative mended the fragile ties of the team, allowing a collective courage to bloom. As the stories intertwined, Jake's heart swelled with recognition. They were not just colleagues, but a tapestry of diverse human experiences. This was the emotional foundation they needed for their project. A spark flickered in Jake's mind, urging him to absorb these insights. He recognized that these stories were not merely personal reflections, they were the essential threads for building a campaign steeped in empathy. The challenge, he realized, lay in distilling these narratives into impactful messaging that truly resonated with the families who felt unseen. Later that day, in the stillness of his office, Jake contemplated the day's progression. Sharing his vulnerability had not only deepened the connection with his team but had illuminated his own understanding of empathy. In being authentic, he had stepped outside the rigid expectations that often shackled professionals. Yet doubts still coiled around his thoughts. Had he truly harnessed the power of their collective vulnerability? Would it translate into tangible change, or were they, at heart, still lost in the market's noise? As he sat back in his chair, the office around him quietened. His phone buzzed a text from Emily, her words simple yet provoking. "How can we turn stories into action?" Instantly, the gears in his mind began to churn faster. The dawning realization flickered brightly. Change would require not just vulnerability but a clear, strategic vision to channel their collective insights. In that moment, Jake's pulse quickened with a newfound urgency. The path ahead demanded a deeper exploration, one where he could face the risks intertwined in elevating those narratives into lived experiences. The time had come to address not only professional expectations but also the moral implications of their impact. With his heart racing, he thought of the journey ahead. Would he be able to navigate this intricate path, and challenge not just his team, but himself to be a connective force within the work they created? Each revelation weighed heavily, a testament to the profound evolution he was undergoing. As he pondered his next steps, it became evident. The true challenge lay ahead, a direct confrontation with the fears that lay within him. Was he ready to turn vulnerability into an action, to embrace the unsettling yet promising shadows of uncertainty? Just how far could he push into this newfound awareness? And as those questions reverberated in his mind, it struck him. The time had come to face not just the project, but the very essence of his identity, as a single father navigating the corporate world. The next move would define him. A leap into the unknown awaited, and with it, the potential for remarkable transformation. Jake leaned back in his chair, a palpable tension gnawing at him. He knew their storytelling exercise had unearthed deep wells of emotion within his team. Yet, as the discussions faded to echoes in his mind, a more daunting question arose. How would he turn that emotional terrain into tangible action? The breakthrough had ignited an internal fire. Yet he felt on the brink of decision paralysis, caught between ambition and fear. He rifled through the notes from their meeting, each personal account a potential stepping stone into an impactful campaign. The stories resided not only in the words but the silent understandings that connected them all. In that vulnerable atmosphere, he had begun to see his team as collaborators, not just colleagues. It was a shift, a transformation within himself, and it begged for a deliberate next step. Action over reflection, he whispered to himself, contemplating the possibility of failure weighing heavily on his shoulders. Could he inspire a culture of bravery, where emotional honesty met strategic execution? Rising from his desk, Jake paced the room, his mind darting like a moth to a flame. He envisioned setting up small groups, workshops devoted to refining their narratives into actions. They could create a set of principles each derived from those heartfelt stories that adorned their meeting room. This would not only empower the team but could bind them, creating a united front in their corporate mission. His phone vibrated again, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Emily, this time a simple invitation tinged with expectation. Let us brainstorm. What do we stand for? Jake's heart tightened. It was the right question, yet one that also urged a confrontation he had skirted. What did they stand for, truly? Digging deeper than market share and profits, was there a soul beneath that would resonate with their audience? Without hesitation, he tapped back, agreeing to meet later that afternoon. The journey to uncovering that essence would have to start now. The atmosphere in the conference room grew electric as he guided the small group workshop. Once more, Jake shared his story, but this time he outlined the implications, how their struggles as individuals mirrored those faced by the families they aimed to connect with through their work. It became a challenge for them to dig deeper, to find shared values within their narratives, a quest that required immense honesty and courage. "Let us craft a manifesto," he proposed, his voice steady, cultivating both excitement and apprehension. "I want you all to consider this not just a corporate document, but a reflection of who we are within and outside these walls." Murmurs broke out, a mixture of skepticism and intrigue threading through the team. Many wrestled with the idea. Could they be this transparent? The prospect of laying bare their ideals and motivations felt daunting, yet thrilling. As Jake led them through exercises designed to translate those emotional stories into actionable insights, he caught a glimpse of a transformation in their faces. The intensity of personal reflections birthed a confidence that flickered like an unquenchable flame. Each crafted word shaped their shared narrative. The meeting ended, yet Jake felt a tremor of vulnerability creeping in. The thoughts flashed through his mind: what if this didn't amount to the change they needed? What if revealing their essence only exposed potential fractures instead of reinforcing their foundation? Hours later, when he returned home, a shadow loomed over his heart. Sophie awaited him, her innocent energy a stark contrast to his swirling thoughts. Beneath his worry, he sought solace in her daily tales, allowing her laughter to tether his racing mind. Yet, as they shared dinner, he couldn't shake the tension of uncertainty teeming with hope. Would they truly carve out a new identity, or was he setting himself up for disappointment? Suddenly, an overlooked idea flashed across his mind. The openness in that room could be an invitation to external collaboration, a way to weave in perspectives even beyond their corporate walls. Was he prepared to explore partnerships that would enhance their mission? An exhilarating thought gripped him. This revelation came with its own weight, stepping out, inviting input, and possibly facing rejection. Yet, the pull of potential growth began to solidify his resolve. As the evening wore on, Jake felt adrenaline surge within him as he focused on those decisions yet to come. He was on the brink of not just transforming their campaign, but of forging an identity that bridged the gap between personal and professional. With this powerful notion swirling in his chest, Jake realized that the real journey lay ahead, as both a father and a leader. Would he have the courage to take that leap, inviting the world to join him on this transformative path? The moment was here for Jake, venturing into the unknown, ready to test the boundaries of fear and possibility. As he plotted his next move, the question remained: could he transform vulnerability into a veritable movement, or would the pressure unravel their profound connections? The air was thick with anticipation the next morning as Jake sat at his desk, the sun casting rays that felt almost prophetic. His mind was a whirlwind of ideas, a concoction of strategies that dared to leap beyond the conventional boundaries he had accepted for so long. Today was the day he would invite his team to the next phase: how to partner their newfound vulnerabilities with outside perspectives. The thrill of possibility pulsated through him, yet the gnaw of apprehension remained like a shadow lingering just behind his shoulder. With a stern grip on his coffee cup, he drilled down into his thoughts. The brief but impactful meeting with Emily had lit a fire within. The manifesto wasn't merely a document, but rather a foundation upon which they could build authentic relationships. If this was to mean anything, he must present a plan that not only executed ideas but fostered a culture where honesty and growth intertwined. He began crafting a presentation that would blend emotional authenticity with pragmatic aspirations. His fingers flew over the keyboard as he structured points about partnership, coalition building, and collective storytelling. It wasn't just about their internal narrative. It was about reaching out, extending the transformative energy that had ignited his team internally to potential allies outside the walls of their office. "Let us be transparent," he murmured, a growing determination crystallizing within him. "Let us own our truth and invite others to share theirs." He envisioned approaching local nonprofits, community organizations, anyone who could lend fresh eyes and a different narrative to their cause. The clock moved swiftly, the day further absorbing him as he worked. With each passing hour, Jake grew invigorated at the thought of collaborating with diverse groups. Perhaps the openness they had shown could inspire others to step forward, leading to shared initiatives that rang true to their newly discovered manifesto. His heart raced with excitement as each potential partnership conjured up in his mind slotted perfectly into place, creating a kaleidoscope of possibilities. When the team arrived, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Jake stood before them, his heart pounding with urgency. "I want to expand our vision. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about reaching outwards, inviting perspectives and talents that can elevate our campaign beyond our inner circles." The faces around the room reflected varying degrees of skepticism and curiosity, but he pressed on. "We will gather stories, not just from those of us within these walls, but from those who can teach us, artists, community leads, and others who share our mission. Their narratives can align with ours, pushing us to think bigger, act bolder." The murmurs grew louder, the weight of his ambition hanging in the air. Jake could feel pulses of doubt wash over him. Would this galvanize the team, or would it create ripples of discord? There was no map guiding him through this territory. It was a stark leap into the unknown. Yet the stakes felt essential, on a personal level and professionally. Deep in his instincts rumbled a worry: how would they navigate these partnerships? What if they faced rejection, or worse yet, criticism? But within that hesitation lay a resolve that was beginning to harden. The very essence of their manifesto depended on the gravity of connection, both external and internal. As they broke into brainstorming sessions, exchanging names and ideas for potential collaborators, Jake, for the first time, felt a fervor surge beyond himself. He watched his team engage, confronting their fears of vulnerability while discovering the thrill of unexpected possibilities. Yet, as he too stepped into this dance of discovery, he felt the inner tug of understanding. The fear of failure still mingled with hope, a thread woven intricately into their shared journey. Amidst the chatter, Jake caught snippets of laughter, voices rising in confidence, and with each moment, those shadows of doubt inched away, transformed into commingled excitement. This was not just about him anymore, it was about all of them stepping toward a shared future. But as the day faded, a quiet fear whispered to him: what if the outside narratives collided painfully with their own? What if collaboration birthed chaos instead of cohesion? This was the crossroads he had to navigate, where hope met vulnerability. Jake understood that the journey was still unfolding, filled with thrilling uncertainty, yet loaded with the potential for meaningful connections. That night, as he lay in bed, thoughts rushed through his mind like the tide, uprooting every carefully crafted notion. A new realization crept in: this undertaking would not just forge professional partnerships, but could redefine who he was as a leader and a father. A chance to demonstrate to Sophie the beauty of genuine connections despite fear. As sleep finally draped over him, one resolute thought lingered: was he truly ready to expose their truths in a world that might not yet understand? The challenge ahead loomed larger than life, but within it, he sensed an unmistakable clarity. Tomorrow would be a new beginning, one that held the promise of deep transformation both personally and for his team. The question loomed: would he summon the courage to engage fully, leading them into the heart of vulnerability, or would the shadows of doubt engulf them all? The sun seemed to rise with a newfound intensity, casting bright beams of light into Jake's home office. As he pulled himself from the depths of sleep, the collective energy of the previous day pulsed through his veins, igniting a sense of urgency. Today would not only mark the continuation of their project but also challenge him to navigate his own vulnerabilities openly. He felt a mixture of excitement and dread, a reminder that growth often demanded an examination of his weaknesses. Jake quickly turned his focus to Sophie, who was busy coloring at the kitchen table. Her laughter echoed, her innocence a stark contrast to the fears churning inside him. He smiled, knowing that he had to set an example for her not just as a CEO, but as a father committed to authenticity and courage. Would he be the role model she needed? Could he withstand the storm of potential failure, while also teaching her the importance of resilience? With a deep breath, he trudged through his mental checklist for the day, finalizing the proposed outreach to partners, ensuring everyone felt included, and being prepared to face any possible pushback. he couldn't afford to waver. Their journey toward collaboration was expected to take an emotional toll, and he was determined to lead his team through it, especially if he wanted to build a culture of trust. Jake arrived at the office ready to confront the day. As his team settled in, he sensed the lingering tensions still present. Doubt flickered in their eyes, but so did eagerness. They were at a pivotal moment. It was then that he realized how vital it was to lean into the authenticity he preached. He couldn't merely teach from a distance, he needed to dive right into the fears he himself had faced. During the morning huddle, Jake decided to open up. "I want to share something personal," he began, gauging their reactions carefully. "Last night, I felt overwhelmed just thinking about how we might be judged for what we put out to the world." As he relayed his own uncertainties about the new approach, he saw heads nodding. Vulnerability, he realized, was contagious. By inviting external perspectives, we lay our true selves bare, he continued. It's frightening. What if they don't accept us? Or worse, what if they dissect everything we do? The room went quiet, absorbing his words. In that moment, they shared a collective breath. The conversation transformed. Team members began sharing their own fears about potential partnerships. They voiced worries over showcasing their raw stories, laying the foundation for an environment where honesty wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. Each revelation fortified their collective purpose, shifting the narrative from apprehension to a rallying unity. The brainstorming sessions that followed produced a raw creativity, unraveling opposing perspectives with vigor. Members who previously held back began to propose novel ideas on how to present their narratives in a compelling way. The rhythm of their collaboration echoed with laughter, recognition, and resilience. Yet, even within this wave of energy, Jake wrestled with latent fears. The pull of insecurity whispered, what if they fell flat? What if the partnerships turned sour? Could he honestly guide them through potential crises? Each thought spiraled deeper, contrasting sharply with the visible enthusiasm surrounding him. Later in the day, as they crafted a proposal for one of the organizations they intended to approach, Jake felt a deep inner conflict surface. He realized they needed to create not only a facade that drew people in but also a heartfelt, open dialogue that could survive scrutiny. Would they risk everything for the sake of authenticity? As he pondered this dilemma, he caught sight of Sophie's drawing in a corner of his office. She had crafted a bright sun decorated with spirals of colors. It struck him that children possess an innate capacity to embrace revealing their truths without hesitation, inherently understanding authentic communication well before adulthood skewed their perspectives. That simple realization kept him anchored. What was he afraid of? And in that very moment, clarity emerged. Leading authentically not only transformed their organizational vision, but redefined his identity. Empowering vulnerability could cultivate an environment rich in understanding, where truths spark inspiration, rather than judgment. The days slipped into an array of discussions, yet as Jake prepared to close out the session, a familiar knot tightened in his stomach. What if tomorrow's outreach revealed a harsh reality, shattering the brave facade they were attempting to cultivate? Would his team rise to the occasion, or would fear mount as a barrier? With the anticipation of the next day pressing heavily on him, Jake understood that nurturing their truths would come at a cost. They were on the brink of something profound, but the vulnerability promised to shake the very foundation they were attempting to build. As he left the office that evening, uncertainty rushed back. The weight of the moment weighed heavily on his shoulders, yet within it, a growing resolve ignited. He needed to confront this fear head-on. Standing at the precipice of transformation, he could no longer afford retreat. Tomorrow was not just about reaching out, it was about confronting the chaos that authentic connections could bring. Would he summon the conviction to follow through, even at the risk of failure? The question loomed, would this journey lead to a vibrant new reality, or unravel into disarray? Jake awoke the next morning with a heaviness in his chest, as if the very air around him was charged with expectancy. Yesterday had coaxed forth something in him, a willingness to be transparent, but with that willingness came the weight of responsibility, not just for himself, but for the entire team. He shook off the apprehension and prepared for the day, drawing strength from the thought of Sophie's radiant sun. Arriving at the office, Jake noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. His team had summoned bravery overnight. The palpable tension was replaced with a sense of purpose. As he walked through the familiar space, he was met with nods and smiles, a mutual understanding radiating from each individual. The shared vulnerability from the previous day had transformed their eagerness into a fierce desire to dive into the unknown together. "Let us gather and regroup," Jake said, his voice carrying an undercurrent of assurance. This was his moment to channel the collective energy into an actionable plan. As the team assembled, he sensed their anticipation mingled with a hint of apprehension. It was time to solidify their intentions and prepare for the outreach that lay ahead. Jake was struck by the realization that their fears had given birth to creativity, and he needed to harness that momentum. "Today, we're crafting our message," he began, watching as faces lit up with determination. "Let us take our truths and translate them into an outreach that reflects who we genuinely are." A ripple of enthusiasm surged through the room, invigorating conversations. However, as they brainstormed, a whisper within Jake's mind countered the growing optimism. Could their authentic narrative withstand external scrutiny? He questioned whether he could endure the weight of others' judgments, the sting of rejection lurking in the shadows. It was a paradox, wanting to embrace honesty while fearing its repercussions. A breakthrough happened mid-session, sparking a creative dialogue that illuminated the corners of uncertainty. They began drafting a heartfelt introduction that would lay bare their mission, peeling back layers until they hit the core of their shared vision. The room crackled with energy. Each word was a brushstroke on the canvas of their future. That afternoon, Jake pulled aside a few team members he could trust most. "What if we need to prepare for backlash?" he asked, a gravity lacing his tone. "What if we spiral into disarray when confronted with harsh realities?" The responses varied, each insightful. "Then we adapt. We learn," one suggested. "We support one another through every challenge," another added. Their willingness to face potential pitfalls head-on empowered Jake further. Was this not what authenticity was all about? Confronting resistance while remaining anchored in truth? As the day wound down, he took a moment to reflect. Stepping outside, he felt the breeze wrap around him, as if urging him to relinquish doubts. He recalled when he first started this project, fueled by passion but burdened by insecurity. Now, standing on the precipice of their outreach, he found himself better equipped, surrounded by a team that had chosen vulnerability over silence. Jake approached Sophie's sunset drawing again, seeking a flicker of inspiration amid his turmoil. In her seemingly simplistic art, he gleaned complexity. Kids weren't just unaided by fear, they embraced it. That ability reignited a fire within him. What if he guided his team just as Sophie guided him to see that comfort resides in honesty? Later, as they meticulously crafted the final proposal, a rush of adrenaline coursed through Jake. With each word, they were weaving their truths into something tangible, something that could touch other lives. Would they resonate? It was becoming clear. The path they adopted was going to be fraught with trials, yet it was also deeply transformative. Filled with newfound determination, Jake knew that he would steer them through whatever came next. He sensed that their ability to face this outreach together as a cohesive unit would define the core of their bond. But as dusk settled in, shadowing the office, that familiar nod returned. The impending outreach felt more daunting than before. What happened if they failed to connect? What if their heartfelt vulnerability blossomed into ridicule? That nagging voice persisted, urging Jake to confront it. Tomorrow, they would send the proposal. Tomorrow, they would lay their authentic selves bare. As he moved towards the exit, he resolved to channel both fear and excitement into courage that could rewrite their story. The next day, they would face the world. Would Jake's unshakable bond with his team be enough to navigate the storm? And what insights would emerge from their unveiling, as whispers of doubt battled against resounding hope? Jake stood at the threshold of his office the next morning, the proposal burning a hole in his pocket. It felt like a talisman of change, yet it also incubated a pulse of anxiety that he had to manage. He could almost hear the muted heartbeat of his team echoing through the room as they prepared for their big reveal. With a deep breath, he gathered the group again. Each individual carried the remnants of yesterday as shared energy, but also a new layer of apprehension. It was time for him to step beyond the role of an aggregate leader. He needed to be their anchor in the forthcoming storm. "Today, we unveil our proposal," he announced, gauging their reactions. Heads nodded, but a flicker of uncertainty lingered in some eyes. "Let us remember why we're here," he continued, his voice steadying as he spoke. "We're not just generating an outreach initiative, we're sharing stories that matter. Ours reflect not only visions for others but also our deepest selves." As they reviewed the polished document one last time, lines of doubt darted across their faces. Jake understood those visceral fears. They were standing at the edge of a precipice, the fear of failure like a gaping chasm ahead. He recognized in this moment a personal call to action, not merely to push through the proposal but to embody the courage it demanded. "If we falter today," he began, an edge in his tone, "let us be brave enough to acknowledge it. Failure will not define us, how we choose to rise afterward will." His words hung in the air like an electric charge, shifting the atmosphere in the room. He invited Sophie's drawing, the sunset they weaved across the earlier discussions, into the conversation once more. "This drawing tells us we can harness beauty amid fear," he said, pointing at it for emphasis. With quiet resolve, he observed how her art resonated with his co-workers. That image represented not just their struggles but a path through them. After a heartbeat of silence, one of the quieter team members piped up, "What if we frame our outreach as a conversation rather than just an initiative? What if we asked questions instead of primarily delivering a message?" The idea floated in the air, expanding like ripples in water, and soon the room ignited with a new kind of energy. As ideas circled and sparked anew, Jake felt his leadership evolving. He wasn't just a participant in this endeavor. He was part of a tapestry woven with threads of collective insight and imagination. Each conversation became a crucial stitch, a moment of depth that stitched them closer as a unit. Yet as the discussion surged, a lurking apprehension whispered once more. What if their best intentions invited nothing but mockery? In the back of his mind, doubts crested. Was their authenticity a strength, or a vulnerability waiting to be exploited? With those thoughts cycling through his head, he kept remembering what was at stake. This outreach was their chance to incite change. The stillness in the office was now brimming with tension, a mix of hope and dread. They would present the proposal this afternoon. He needed to still that rising anxiety. Before they dispersed to put the finishing touches on their pitch, he took a moment to center himself and the team. "Whatever happens today, let us promise to stay rooted in our authenticity. This is our truth, and it has the power to connect. If we fail, let's learn. If we succeed, let us grow." Jake moved forward, feeling a lightness accompany his steps as clarity surged through him. The room, buzzing with creativity, was a space where profound connections were forming, not just with their outreach, but also amongst themselves. But as they finalized the logistics, that pulsating knot of doubt returned. The finality of the presentation loomed like an approaching storm. Would they relay their message effectively? Could they foster real connections? There was no turning back now. They were a group stepping resolutely into the fire, armed with their truths. Jake recognized profound potential for growth in the uncertainty of the forthcoming hours. But he also felt, aware of his own earlier doubts, the unceasing tide of inner conflict that could either empower him or overwhelm him. He paused as he watched his team buckle down, heartbeats in sync, steeling their resolve. The time had come to align their vulnerabilities with courage. Would Jake's quest for personal growth guide not just him but also his team through what lay ahead? In that pivotal moment, he realized the labyrinth of challenges was not merely external. His greatest test would also involve facing his own internal struggles head-on. And with those thoughts nagging at him, he knew that the real question remained. What truths were yet to emerge from this journey that would reshape the very fabric of their outreach, their team, and himself? Jake stood outside the conference room, heart racing. Today, they would unveil their proposal to community partners, a culmination of vulnerability, risk, and collaboration. He felt an exhilarating mix of pride and fear coursing through him. He knew the stakes were high not just for the project, but for him personally, as a single dad providing inspiration for his daughter and as a leader striving to redefine success. As the team gathered, the atmosphere brimmed with expectation and anxious energy. Jake took a moment to observe their faces. They were all in it together, the culmination of weeks of expressing vulnerability and creativity. He felt a surge of confidence among them. "Remember, this isn't just about our project. It represents who we are," he began, grounding their intentions in authenticity. With every passing moment, he realized the depth of their shared stories made the proposal a living entity, their truths intertwined. When they presented, their passion wasn't merely a performance, it was a heartfelt revelation. Each member echoed sentiments that reflected their struggles and aspirations, and with every word, they reinforced their commitment to fostering connections. Jake felt a profound sense of unity within the team, and the weight of previous fears began to lift. As the presentation progressed, Jake felt himself change. He stood taller, spoke more assuredly, and saw not the potential for failure but the opportunity for meaningful impact. Their proposal echoed with warmth, sharing not only metrics and goals but the honest narrative of a community seeking to uplift one another. When the meeting ended, applause erupted, affirming the resonance of their combined efforts and passion. However, a fresh wave of doubt washed over him as he stepped outside to regroup with the team. What if the external response fell short of their dreams? What if their enthusiasm was met with skepticism? He took a deep breath and reminded himself to stay grounded in the love and commitment he had been displaying to his daughter in every action. Jake knew that even if external validation didn't come as hoped, they had already achieved something monumental together. Days passed, but their vulnerability had fostered a lasting core within the group. Partnerships blossomed, and soon they were meeting with impactful organizations willing to align with their mission. Each interaction propelled Jake further along a path of self-discovery. The more he leaned into their shared truths, the more confidence he felt, not just as a manager but as a man, as a father. Jake's evolution was palpable. He embraced the art of listening more actively. He began encouraging his team to share their own insights, celebrating their diverse perspectives. With each workshop and every touch point with potential partners, he found that he felt at home in this blend of professional identity and personal authenticity. Most importantly, he emerged from the cocoon of self-doubt. His fears transformed into empathy and understanding, which fueled his desire to excel. As they collectively celebrated small successes and milestones, Jake saw the same determination in his daughter's eyes as she shared her art. She was growing, just like he was. His journey culminated in an unexpected phone call, an invitation to speak at a community conference about their project, about embracing vulnerability in professional settings, and about the power of personal storytelling in driving change. Jake felt an overwhelming wave of recognition wash over him. This was the moment he never expected to see. He would not only have the chance to share their collective journey but to set an example for others, not just as a CEO, but as a father embodying authenticity and courage. Standing on that stage, facing the audience, Jake felt solid confidence underpinning his words. Connecting through vulnerability has not just propelled our mission, it has reshaped my identity as a father and as a leader, accepting my flaws, reminding me that we are all interconnected. The applause was thunderous, and in that moment, Jake knew he had truly stepped into his power. He had conquered the shadows that followed him, not just in his professional life but in his heart as well. His journey was a testament to personal growth and the realization that genuine connections are invaluable whether in business or fatherhood. As he stepped down from the stage, the warmth of recognition surrounded him. A message echoed in his mind: transformation is possible far beyond professional aspirations. It lies in the heart, the home, and the ties we create along the way. He had proven not just to himself but to Sophie that vulnerability and courage could lead to deep, fulfilling connections. The future might remain uncertain, but he would face it, not with fear, but with an empowered sense of purpose. Today marked not just the end of an incredible journey but the beginning of a transformative legacy, one he would nurture for Sophie and others to learn from, forever. Please, if this story inspired you, make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it really makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand how crucial it is to support this channel through these actions.